Hi everyone, this is an intro to my intro for this video. I just very quickly wanted to say that both myself and Beeranid 40K wanted to give a really big shout out to Nick from Idic Beer. Without him, me and him, Beeranid would never have been able to connect. This interview would never have happened, and just Nick from Idic Beer is actually just an amazing guy. I've spoken to him myself a few times, and honestly, such a great guy. Links to his channel everywhere. Basically, if you are ever thinking of getting into YouTube about 40K, talk to the man. He knows his stuff, and honestly, great guy. Anyway, now we're going into my intro, which is the real intro for the rest of this film. Hello everybody, Glass Half Dead here, and I'm coming at you today with part 1 of my interview, discussion, chat, discourse with Beeranid 40K. I'm sure if you're watching my channel, you already know the man, the myth, the legend himself. If not, I'm sure I've dropped a link for him somewhere. However, I'm just giving you a quick intro just to let you know that once again, unfortunately, my chat with Beeranid occurred before I figured out how to fix my audio issues. So there's a little bit of levels imbalance between my audio and his audio. Again, future things after Beeranid interviews are fixed. Unfortunately, you guys are going to have to put up with a few of my own personal missteps and lack of technical know-how and knowledge as I try and figure out how to best deliver Kill Team long-form content to you guys. Anyway, I'm not going to hold you up any longer because honestly, everything Beeranid 40K has to say is, of course, great. So let's dive into it right now. Part 2 is coming up next Monday. Every Monday, Kill Team long-form content. That's my dedication to you for at least, I don't know, like a week. I don't like commitment. Let's not tie me into anything. Anyway, enjoy the video. Hello everybody, Glass Half Dead here, and today with me I have the illustrious, does all of the content that I do but slightly better and earlier for some reason, I don't know how, Beeranid 40K, or as I will be calling him today, Chris. Chris, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you, boss man?
Well, it's 6:30 a.m. I just woke up specifically to do this, so obviously I'm great, and not at all tired.
Yeah. Yep. 10:30 here. So opposite.
Yes, yeah. Where are you? That's West Coast, isn't it? East Coast.
Yeah. I'm in North Hollywood, California. So right by Universal Studios. If you ever come out, I am right there, walking distance. So have to get a game if you come out on vacation.
Oh, I was actually up that way a few months ago for work. However,
Oh yeah.
for those of you that don't care about that out there, and for anyone that doesn't know who you are, Chris, who are you?
Well, I make YouTube content. I talk about Gene Stealer cults and Kill Team, basically. Kill Team, I talk about every kind of faction. In 40K, I just talk about Gene Stealer cults. But channel's almost about a year old now. Started last March, so almost there. March 15th, I think, will be the year anniversary of the channel. So I do Tactica videos, all that good stuff. But they're slow coming because I don't do the videos until I've actually played the faction myself, and not just once, numerous times, or played against them for like months and months and months in the campaigns that were going on and things like that. So it's not the most, prolific Tactica content, but I hope that it's quality content.
Certainly, when I was creating my Gene Stealer Cults list, I made sure that I watched your Gene Stealer Cult video before I started making it. Same
Awesome,
goes for
man.
your Death Watch content. Really good stuff up there. That's why we're having this chat. Got to talk to people that are doing things better than you to try and learn.
Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. You're too kind.
I am. Yes, I actually put that in my CV whenever I go for jobs. Too kind. Yeah. Okay, so you have just come out of LVO. I believe you mentioned in your video that you just missed top 4, or was it you just missed top 8?
Yeah, no, I missed top 4. I lost the first round against Death Guard by 1 point. I held back. The guy brought basically in the muster phase. There was things that wasn't the typical Death Guard list. Usually, you're talking 2 Plague Marine gunners, 2 Plague Marine fighters, a leader, and 3 epoxies. And the list that I brought and put down and handed over to him was completely different than what I expected to be facing. And so he had more bodies on the board, things like that. And I just kind of waited to see what he was going on in that early phase. And I think that it cost me that first game. So if I had that one more point in that game and had a tie, I would have had an overall higher tournament score. And I think I would have been in the top 4 there. And then there was also in the 4th game, we didn't get to finish the last round. I think because we were at the very first table. Each game you were switching different tables and different opponents. And when it came time to shut down, we were at the very front. So I think that we were, the guy had a mile worth of tables to go tell to shut down. So I think that we were the first to be closed down, and we were in the 3rd round. So that 4th round, we never got to get a conclusion to.
Okay.
So I barely scraped through that one. Yeah. Yeah.
But you had actually hit time in the 3rd round then. It wasn't that you got called early.
I actually don't know because I didn't get the warnings that they were doing in the other ones. It's weird because in the other rounds, there were times where we were done really fast. And some of the earliest, and I kept waiting for the next round and talking to the past opponents, talking to other people at the tables and things like that, and just waiting. And so this one, the end it seemed like instant, it was totally unexpected for me.
Right.
And
too focused.
Yeah, it got me
dedicated to the game.
Yeah. It was a tight game, man. He played orcs against my Tyranids, and that is just a tough matchup to begin with. And so,
well, before
I don't know if I would have pulled that out.
Very quickly, was this your first kind of big kill team tournament?
My first big tournament, but I had done other things here. I did the 3-month campaigns that were here, and I did actually 2 of those simultaneously, and both had different rules basically that they were doing, to where one, you could bring multiple kill teams at the same time. Another one, you could do you could switch after each month and bring in a new team, things like that. And then there was also a single list event up here at a store. And the meta up here is pretty competitive. And I did a single list of Tyranids there, which was 3 warriors, 1 lictor, and a Hormigaunt. And it was 3 rounds. I won both rounds. And then it came to the final round, and I lost that by 1 point. And so I almost won that. Yeah, I almost won that one. And then since I had lost that, it came to points for where your actual placing was, and I came in 4th in that one. So it was like, man, I keep getting these 1 point little things. Yeah. It's always an interesting tight squeeze there. So I'm going to have to work on that.
Have you actually managed to take home one of the kill team coin medal things yet?
No, I didn't. I played. The thing is that in one of the stores, me and my friend decided to do some narrative kind of play stuff and just show up and do that. And he ended up taking a clean sweep of all 3 months. And what it was just, we were just doing kind of fun lists, but he brought Admech and he had a lot of plasma, and I was doing Astartes. And so that's just a bad matchup to begin with. I won 1 out of the 4 with that, because I locked into a list and didn't make many changes, and he did the same thing. And I won 1 game out of that, and it was basically because the game ended, and I had 2 models with a flesh wound on each one, and it was because I had forgotten a model at home and stuff like that, was playing the wrong models, and it ended up being a weird thing to where I won. It didn't feel like a victory at all. Yeah, he still had like all his guys. I had 2 guys with a flesh wound, but somehow I ended up pulling through because of some weird rules. So, yeah.
I mean, I only played Admech a few times, but on paper they seem incredibly strong with the amount of plasma they can take. But obviously, unlike Guard, who can properly plasma spam, these guys can actually hit you.
Well, yeah, I think that Admech can properly plasma spam too, because you're thinking 6 plasma spamming gunners, right? 2 vanguards, 2 rangers, or 3 vanguards, 3 rangers. And the thing about them is that they're assault 2 on their weapon profile on that plasma, whereas Guard is rapid fire 1. So you have 12 overcharged plasma shots from round one that they can advance, get into position, and shoot. And that is, in my opinion, it makes them, they're not broken, but they are top tier, I believe. AdMech is a sleeper faction. I think a lot of people got the starter set started with them. See, this is the thing in my area. At the beginning, there was a lot of AdMech around, but not a lot of plasma spam. And people graduated onto what they thought were bigger, better things. And the joke's kind of on them, because if you can do it, if you can go on eBay and pay $14 each for those caliber bits and build that full roster with the 6 gunners, you put in the time, you put in the money to do it, you have one heck of a roster. They have great close combat, they have great shooting, they have the canticle buffs that give them all rerolling ones to hit. So the entire army with plasma is a sniper specialist, basically, in addition to any other buffs. Just things like that. They can take 2 omni specs in a single list. They are just devastating to go against when they're in the hands of a competent player.
Oh, I agree completely. I've got to say, in the forums and Reddits, etc., that I hang around in, I'm surprised we don't see more about them. And I don't really know why.
I don't know, Reddit. I look around sometimes, and that's the thing about the internet, is that anybody can post anything. There is no requirement for references, credentials, experience, and you can go and post anything. I can go and say crocodiles. Yeah, well, you can go and say, for example, crocodiles have 8,000 teeth. Do they? I don't know, but I can go and I can post that. And so you get people who post their opinions, and that opinion is taken with, a lot of times taken when new players go on and look, or people are looking for a meta or looking for what's the actuality of something. People go and look. Anybody can post, and it causes some misinformation, I think.
Yeah,
so
that's
you
very
really, you really got to watch out for some of these online communities, I've noticed.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, so do you want to go into a breakdown of your 6 games from LVO?
Well, it was 4 games at LVO because I didn't make it to the semifinals.
Right.
And
speaking to Mike yesterday, and he had 6 games. My bad.
Yeah. He got to. He went on. He was the Azuriani player, correct?
Yes, that's right. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, best dressed. I met him there. He was dressed impeccably in his waistcoat and everything. He wouldn't remember me, probably.
Would do that. Yeah.
Yeah. He looked like he ran the event. He looked like the TO. But so the thing, so first round, Death Guard. Like I said, I set up, I kind of waited. And the thing about Tyranids is you don't want to wait. You don't want to play conservative.
Could you tell us your list first, or your roster?
So first game, my roster is, so I have 12 Hormagaunts, 2 of which are specialists. I have a veteran spec and a scout spec. Or not a veteran spec for the nerve buffs, nerve test buffs.
Yep.
And I had 2 warriors, 1 gunner, 1 leader. Gunner, toxin sacs, adrenal glands, everything. Leader, toxin sacs, adrenal glands, everything. Both had bone swords, and the leader had a death spitter. So 3 shots, assault, strength 5, AP -1. And that was it. I didn't take the full 20. It's an interesting story, but we had a lot of rain here on the West Coast, and my ceiling decided to fall in right above my hobby table. And so some stuff that I had planned to bring, I was debating on gene stealers and things like that. It really was a mad dash. It took me 3 months to prepare for this event, and I was thinking of Death Watch. I didn't know what I was going to take, and then it finally got to be where I saw those Kill Team Annihilation rules, and I went with Tyranids, and I hurried up to get certain things painted up and done, and that's what I ended up taking. So I had that 16 model roster.
Sorry, I completely forgot to ask. Before we get to your games, what was your for the event? What
was my what?
Your preparation for the event. What made you?
Oh, it was quite a lot because my friend and I started playing Nova missions. He was going to go. He's the AdMech player that did the 3-month clean sweep. He and I do a lot of play testing together. We're both competitive players, and we both push each other. And I think that I get the better end of the deal there because he is naturally a very good player, whereas I do a lot of experimentation and failure, and I learn from that failure. And so I went back and forth. Do I take cults? Do I take Tyranids? Do I take Death Watch? And I ended up building up Deathwatch roster, an entire thing of Deathwatch specifically for LVO, and then didn't take them at the last minute. Because it was just, I didn't know the rule set. I expected an email to come, and lo and behold, they had posted it on the website, and it wasn't there when I had first registered, and was there about 3 days before the event as when I found it and was like, oh, okay, so this is Nova, but it's with terrain that you can be on top of.
Right.
And
It for you.
Right, because you're talking about objectives, and if you have a game with, say, 6 objectives or something, and you're starting the game with 5 Deathwatch Marines, that's starting you out on the back foot. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to go with my bugs. I'm very familiar with them, comfortable with them. I know them fairly well. And so that's what I ended up taking in the end.
Okay, great. So, Death Guard.
Death Guard. Yep, meta number 1. I see them as the first of the meta that formed with Kill Team, because Kill Team first came out. People said, okay, Death Guard are good. And then you started seeing things that had to counter the Death Guard. Then you started seeing things that had to counter the counter to Death Guard.
Me and Mike were talking yesterday, again, the Eldar player. He proposed the idea of gatekeeper lists as we have in 40K. I'm sure you know 40K, Castellan and Guard is kind of the gatekeeper list. If your list cannot beat that, which anyone can play and do relatively decently regardless of their skill, it's a gatekeeper list. Anyone can take it.
Yeah,
I believe
that's actually a really smart way to look at it.
Yeah. If you cannot beat Death Guard, who are a very powerful army, but can be very powerful because of their good save, their disgustingly resilient, and their T5, more so than their, than the quality of the player behind it. Not that there isn't a difference between how good somebody is and how well the team will do, obviously, but the list, if your list can't beat them, issue.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with Death Guard is I think that they got treated a bit unfairly in the beginning. Is that there was a list that a lot of people were running. It was, like I said, the two Plague Marine Gunners, 2 Plague Marine Fighters with flails. You had the Warrior, or the leader, and you had the 3 Poxies, and that was the list. And people they thought they were going to show up, roll dice, and steamroll everybody.
Sure.
And when Plasma Spam came around to counter that, there wasn't a concerted effort by players to find a workaround for that. And that's why, like, if you look at LVO, there were 2 Death Guard players, and yeah, one of them was in top 8. But I think that it just says a lot about the faction, is that a lot of times people are going to jump ship sometimes when the meta shifts, and Kill Team is very Darwinian. And you're seeing, like I said, it's this counters that. So this is the meta. Well, now everybody knows, okay, Tyranids are the thing. Next time, Tyranids are going to get smashed.
So a lot of people start to paint up their Tyranid swarms. Yeah.
Oh, I that is such an opportunity for a competitive player, because, like I said, what you're seeing, I mean, people rush onto this idea of meta, and they're forgetting the Darwinian wet dream that Kill Team is.
Unlike 40K, where you have to spend months building up a new army, you can probably back up to 20-man roster in a week.
Well, like I said, I did it. I had my guys painted in 3 days, and I had my lists banged out because I took my roster and I split that into 3 different lists, and that was tailored to the mission and different factions that would come up. So depending on what I faced, I knew what I would take, and for the specific mission. So yeah, it's just it's a good opportunity right now that everybody's loving on Tyranids, because Tyranids are not, in my opinion, a tier 1 team. Tyranids, if you did a 3-month campaign, if you did a 3-month campaign and you're doing things like, oh, you have to run these guys off the board, or you have to make this one model survive, you know that Tyranids don't like that. What they liked was recover intelligence in the core rulebook mission, which was an objectives game. And so, yeah, they do good in objectives games. This is something that has just now started to be as popular as it is with Arena and the LVO and Nova and stuff like that. But when it's not that, Tyranids really struggle. And here's the other thing, is that, like I said, you had Death Guard was first, Plasma Spam came, countered Death Guard, and then you had Body Spam, which defeated a lot of times the Plasma Spam. Well, now what's going to be hot? I mean, look at things with flamers, look at things with combi weapons that can split shots, missile launchers, things like that. If somebody knows there's going to be a bunch of Tyranids all over the place, that is a big advantage. And I think that people should be careful about spamming Tyranids. I know that if I was playing at Adepticon, I would not be bringing Tyranids. I definitely would not, because everybody's going to be ready to pounce on them. They're expecting to be everywhere. They know that, 20-man roster is what a lot of people are going to be trying to field. 19 gaunts, one warrior with a synapse. And they're going to take that warrior out. They're going to spam flesh wounds and out of action everywhere. And then you're going to have breaks. And then they can just walk around and score.
Now, I believe, you're correct. I completely agree that there's going to be a meta. People are going to be, in the next Adepticon, probably, people are going to be fearing that list and they're going to bring counters to it. And maybe it won't do too well. However, I believe Tyranids, as a Tyranid Swarm army list, have been the only faction that have made it to within the top 10 in all of the 3 major tournaments so far since Kill Team released.
Yeah, but you also have to look at, for example, they're a little bit overrepresented. At LVO, there were 5 to 6 players out of 36 bringing Tyranids. There was one Thousand Sun player, 2 Death Guard players. So if you were to line 10 players on the wall, you'd have possibly 2 of those 10 playing Tyranids, and certain factions not being played at all. Of course, they are going to be there and visible. And it's like, they win one event and people start losing their minds. And it's like, we still haven't seen things that would do really well against Tyranids, like the 1000 Suns. 1000 Suns are gross. You have flamers everywhere. They can spam bodies, and their bodies actually hurt. Cormagants aren't taking anybody out of action. Sangor will. So, you take some of these combos now that you can do, and like I said, leverage that against a Tyranid player, and it's going to be dangerous out there for bugs, for that list of bugs, I think. People need to remember also that bugs can take, instead of the 20-man list, they can take 4, and run all lictors. Just things like there are other builds out there, and it's going to be this constant picking game that happens. So we'll have to see how it goes.
Something I really should have asked the other guys, but completely forgot. Were there any factions not there at LVO?
I didn't see any Guard. That was surprising. Guard did really well at Nova. Things like that. It's just like I said, 1000 Suns, you expected to see them. Grey Knights, you didn't see.
No.
Yeah, there was a guy. I saw one guy with Plebistartes that had a single take-all-comers list, and he wasn't leveraging a roster. Yeah. So 5 guys, and he just did his best. So it was different. It was interesting. And who knows if there had been 6,000 Sun players or 8 different Death Guard players or something like that, we could have definitely seen a different outcome, and then people would be screaming that was the meta.
Yes, no, you're completely right. Of course, representation does matter, and I don't mean that in a political justice, social justice way. Yes, how many armies are going to be there? Just instantly, better players, worse players. Maybe the guy that brought 1000 Suns was a terrible player. Maybe his dice were cold that day. You just don't know.
Yeah, he might have got bad matchups. There's a few things that could have happened there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to keep interrupting your games. Continue.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. So first game, memory's getting a little hazy. I had slept like 1 hour that night. So it was pretty crazy. I ended up cashing
the LVO Vegas attrition rate, was it?
No, it wasn't the pub crawl. I just I got into town late. I because of my obligations in real life, I just had to go at a certain time. I ended up staying at an old guitarist's house because I'm from Vegas originally. That's where I grew up, and so I just crashed on a guitarist's couch, and he was up and I was up, and pretty soon the sun was up, and it was time to start going. So
okay,
yeah,
vicious way to start.
Yeah, so just I apologize for some things being blurry, but yeah, so first match was Death Guard, and I can't remember exactly what he brought, but it was things. He brought more Poxies than I thought he would. He had only one Plague Marine Gunner with the Blight Launcher, he had right. This is what I'm saying. I looked at what he hands me his cards or whatever, and I start looking. I'm like, this is a different list than what I expected to go against. And so, like I said, I start playing very conservatively and just taking things where I could. And I, did okay, but I lost by 1 point in that one.
Now,
Yeah.
I mean, the reason we're surprised is because obviously the gunners are so good. The gunners and the fighters are such good weapons. Presumably, what he brought instead, while not being what you expected and not probably wasn't as good, maybe on paper. Was it a case of you weren't expecting it, so therefore you did worse? And if he had brought the on paper better weapon, then actually you'd have done better against him?
Yeah, I got caught list tailoring. And so that was the thing is I had expected this certain list and a small amount of bodies. And I figured, you know what, I'm going to lock things up and dominate in objectives. And all of a sudden he had bodies. And so that threw a little wrench in my plans. And like I said, no plague flail. I mean, things like that. Like, what is happening here? I mean, that's just the stand. Huh?
Does he even know the faction? If you're not taking a play, what are you doing?
Yeah, he knew what he was doing. I guess he had his roster, and he just he probably knew what was going on. He probably knew that people were expecting a certain list. Like I said, you went from Nova with a ton of Death Guard players to only a few that have stuck with it now, and so he's probably been around the block a little bit and figured it out. A lot of the guys I played ended up. I mean, they would be setting out their acrylic tokens from the campaigns, and like one guy, I was like, "Oh, you played your campaign. How do you do?" "Oh, I did all right." And then at the end, after the game, his buddy comes by. "Oh, you lost or something?" And he goes, "He was the one that won our campaign all 3 months." Like, "Oh, that's so beardy." He told me, "Oh, I did okay," and then it turns out he was the winner of his local campaign all 3 months. So the people that were there were savvy players, man. They were good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is, as you say, beardy. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I admire it. I love it.
Oh, okay. You're into that. You're into cards close to the chest. Information's my own sort of thing. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's different than like a gotcha moment where you're not expecting a unit to have a certain rule or a tactic that can be used. I mean, this is just no reason he had to tell me that he was the winner.
No.
And then therefore maybe, so maybe I would take it a little easier or something, or not expect him to have a crazy right hook or something.
The psychological games,
yeah, I love it. I think it's great.
Okay, awesome. And game 2.
Game 2. What was game 2? Game 2 was Dark Eldar, Drukhari.
Okay.
That was an interesting thing. I was texting my friend that I do like I said, we train together and stuff up here and talk competition all day and everything. I mean, up till the wee hours of the morning sometimes. And he was like, "Ooh, that's going to be a tough matchup, bro. You better take a Lictor." I just texted back because we were already ready to roll. I said, "I'm taking 2." And that was my last mission to him before writing back saying that I had won. Awesome. Yeah. And so that one was an interesting game because combat drugs make Drukhari to where they get better as the game progresses. Yes. And so
pain.
Right. So that started out with an early lead that just little by little, it stopped being such a lead. And I just, pretty soon I had maxed out on certain things and I was scrambling to do other stuff. And so, like I said, I won that one, but the guy did a great job. He came back and held his own against the Tyranids.
Okay.
So,
and your list,
good job on him.
There had 2 Lictors in.
Yeah, I had 2 Lictors, I think 6 Gaunts, and then the Warrior Leader with the death.
So many wounds to chew through there. That's gonna.
Yeah.
Good list tailoring. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, well, it was, I knew there was going to be close combat. I had to dominate on that, and it was pretty wide open. The boards were set up very similarly, but because of like maybe the way that things had been set up, certain ones felt more wide open than others. And so that one felt kind of wide open. And I knew that I had to worry about his Cabalites with the splinter cannons. And so,
Dark Lance. I'd be more scared of a Dark Lance than a Blaster then. Maybe.
no, I don't think he did. But he had a couple of the Cabalites.
To pick off your big guys quite nastily.
Yeah. He might have had one, actually. He had two gunners, and he had a Hecatrix and then the rest witches. And
the standard, what I would consider the standard Drakari setup.
Yeah. And so I just had to be smart with my charges and things like that and keep my lictors in combat, not consolidate after a kill, things like that, so that I could charge in next time and not be out in the open. Because if I consolidate in, they back out. Now I'm stuck in the open. I can't charge, stuff like that.
And
so I had to be very positional.
Here, I will link the video that you just did all about that. Yes.
Oh, cool. Yeah, positional play is a big part of Kill Team, and so it was a pretty white knuckled game. And like I said, managed to pull through that, but not by a huge margin. But the thing about it is, after that first loss, I was really worried about round 2. I needed points. And so, like I said, that's why I was maxing out on things pretty soon. It was like, oh no, I can't score any more of this. So I'm having to run and do other things.
Okay.
And so after that, I'm looking at my score and I'm like, well, I'm actually okay in position right now. If I can keep going, if I can stop now in this third round, I'm going to be able to do this. And so that now leads into round 3, which was versus Admech. And like I was saying, to take Admech, I mean, they are the number 1 faction that I play against. My friend, that's what he did all 3 months. That's how he won the local campaigns here.
So and you've faced them a lot, but you've also lost them a lot.
Correct. And the thing about it is that when you talk about terrain and stuff, this is one of the things that's a buff about Arena, that I like about Arena, is when you have actual terrain on the board, a savvy player, if they get the right piece of terrain, can create an unchargeable model or group of models that you just cannot get to because you can't be in base-to-base contact, or you can't get a charge off to get up that piece of terrain. And with the new FAQ, saying that you had to basically agree before the game started what you could climb up and things like that. That was priority number 1 for me. So I saw, okay, let's talk about this terrain. What can I climb up? Where are the access points? We got that down, and then we started setting up. So like I said, this one I knew I had to crush it. And so I started putting down Hormagaunts. Waiting to see where he would set up his calibers and stuff like that. And then once I had a good lead on it, there was a lictor ready to go get him with Metabolic Overdrive turn 1.
Perfect.
And, yeah. So that one, I think it was like 14-6, something like that. And again, it was a nice little chunk of points to my score. And that one was the same list as the Dark Eldar list that I ran. So I took the 2 lictors, 1 warrior leader, and then like 6 Hormagaunts.
Okay. Good. And were you confident in that? Because obviously, as you've just said, Admech are very strong, but you have played them a lot. Did you feel you had the game in hand? Like once things were actually underway, or was it touch and go?
I felt that I would be able to do it. The thing about a gun line is that once you get in, they start to panic a lot of times. And so I knew if I could keep pressure on, that would alleviate a lot of what I needed to do to score. And so that was game plan, was just put the pressure on, squeeze them and try to dominate with the Hormagaunts all around. The great thing about it is that turn 1, pulling off that charge with Metabolic Overdrive, I had a lictor with 3 guys basically like, oh no, what do I do? Because he's up on a piece of terrain and he's got to think, do I jump down with all these Hormagaunts around? Do I ready and try to shoot his leader? And so it puts him in a weird place. And so now in turn 2 and 3, I have Metabolic Overdrive, just boom, with another lictor and stuff like that. So all of a sudden, once you have 1 turn of pressure, you can do some massive stuff with a model that can have a 9-inch base move and a 2d6 charge. So it's huge. I mean, and then it's like, oh, you roll that d6 to see if you take a mortal wound, but he's a 4-wound model and stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, so actually, got your guys into the gun line. He doesn't know what to do, and he obviously can't match you in combat. So that was kind of, you locked him up, game over.
Yeah, the thing about it is I don't think that he didn't know what to do. I think that he just had to debate what to do. And the pressure started keeping his mind on that one area of the board. Whereas, like, say, for example, he had two Sicarians that could really cause problems.
So
And
he had melee there.
so, right, he had melee. And so there was a central objective that it just basically came down to positioning. This consolidation and all this kind of stuff to control that, and counter charges and things like that to make it mine. That was a big part of it, was that he wasn't, I don't think, able to focus on that 100% and play that perfectly because he had problems on his flanks. So I think that was a big part of it. I didn't feel that I had it, but after a couple rounds of this kind of stuff, the lead felt too big for him to come back from. And so then I
won by disrupting his game plan enough that he kind of, as you say, had to debate, okay, well, I was going to do X, but now I have to do Y or Z because otherwise we'll definitely lose this game.
Yeah, and it got to the point to where, like, for example, I had maxed out on the 9 points that you can have for objectives, so I had to, I could have done more. Like, his leader was right within range to charge and things like that, but I just backed away from everything, fell onto different parts of the board, like for the different secondary objectives, like, oh, you have your model in their deployment zone or whatever. Just I started thinking about, okay, let's eke a couple more points out to help my overall tournament sitting here. And so that's what I did.
So you got your main objectives and said, right, secondaries. He can get the rest of the mains. I'm done with that.
Right.
Interesting.
Yep. And he had very few models left at that point. So there wasn't a lot of threat to my guys.
You were just cleaning up.
Right. I just started going for max points at that point.
Okay, and obviously that worked for you. Great.
Yeah, that one worked really well. And then turn 3, or round 4, I should say, was against orcs. And at this point, like I said, I'd been up, I hadn't slept, had some intense games, and that one I didn't play very well. It was 2 lictors, 1 warrior, and some gaunts. And another thing, man, about the Nova terrain, terrain kind of sucks sometimes because you're, like, for example, turn 1, I march a lictor up behind a piece of terrain, and I'm a tall guy. I look down and it has a roof on it, and I just park my guy behind there. Well, there was a little hole that I didn't see that my opponent, this piece of terrain's on my side of the board, he saw. So he gets his guys up there, and I had a Scorcha hit my lictor really early, and lost a 25-point model over a hole in a little hole in a piece of terrain that I didn't notice.
Are deceptively good. Yes. Yeah. Quick question,
And so,
actually, while I've got you here, rules question regarding lictor. So obviously, if you're using the official model, they have quite large. What are they? They're not the scything. Are they the scything talons?
Oh, grasping talons.
Talons. Do those count as arms or weapons when it main body or weapons when it comes to determining line of sight?
That's a great question. It's a very contentious one, and it's different at every place you go. It'll be different for the Tyranid player.
Okay. So there's no consensus.
Yeah. Well, because you're not supposed to be able to measure the line of sight to a weapon. Like a pistol barrel sticking out isn't going to allow a line of sight if the guy has nothing else. But this is a part of the monster. And if hands are a legal thing, is this not a hand? And so I've had points where it was and points where it wasn't in different games.
Rules as written, you can draw a line of sight from the tip of a gun.
You can do it if you're the shooting model, but not usually if, from what I understand, if you're being shot at.
No, you can draw a line of sight to and from any part of the model. It's the obscurement rules that change. So if you're drawing line of sight to or from the very tip of a barrel, you will be obscured, or your opponent will be obscured if you are the one drawing line of sight. But it's a valid thing. Although some people do argue that it's kind of a dick thing to do, but rules as written, yeah, you can draw.
Yeah, it's good to know in a tournament. This is what you're there to
Yeah.
do is to know things and be the best that you can be on top of it. So very good to know. I'll have to look at that.
I did a video which I will now link for everybody to watch.
Yeah, I had no idea that.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you with pedantic rules questions there. Carry on.
No, that's fine. Yeah, because that actually came up for a buddy who was playing Tau in a tourney that basically he could measure line of sight from an antenna on his model to make a shot, but that wasn't in turn okay for the guy to shoot him. And so I guess maybe because that happened early, that kind of stuck with me. But it is good to know directly from the rule book what the actual rules are and not just a arbitrary TO ruling in one event. So good to know, man. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
Personally, the way I play is I actually like to play rules as written, I've got to be honest. And so I do play it with, if you can see even the tiniest bit of my toe or gun or antenna, I will let you shoot me. But equally, I will shoot in return. However, because some people don't like that, anytime I place a model, if I don't know the opponent, I will just check. It's like, I can see you, you can see my antenna. Can you shoot me? I'll phrase it that way. Can you shoot me? Not can I shoot you? And then if they say yes or no, I will then go with their ruling. And, just it saves a lot of hassle.
Yeah, and it keeps everybody happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sorry.
Yeah, I like rules as written. This is why tournaments are so great, is because there is no hard feelings over something like that. Whereas, when it's just buddies playing, you might do something like that. You might say, "Hey, how do you feel about this?"
Yeah. I'm a very casual player, or at least that's my excuse for never winning. And I prefer to just, if they say no, I won't shoot you, I'll say okay, I won't shoot you. That's fine. But obviously in a tournament, I will phrase it the other way. I can see you if I am here. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So you've
Sounds
just lost
good.
a Lictor to a burner, a 25-point model to a 12-point model. It's a bad start. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, and there was just it was tough because one of the secondaries that I had picked, I believe, was to get on to either get on the other side of the board or to get his leader. And there was something about that leader I wanted to get, and I'll have to look back and see what the exact secondary was that I picked.
Was it
but
Grot leader?
It sure was. And yeah, and he was way in the back. He wasn't tucked or anything. He was right there taunting me the whole time. But here I am playing a melee faction, and so there was no reach out and touch happening. And I just kept scrambling to try and break through this hard center that he had. And yeah.
Well, if anyone can do it, it's going to be Tyranids or, I guess, Harlequins that could make that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing about it is that he was doing good counter charges. And so I kept wanting to back out. And we would both do decisive move, roll off, I lose. And so he gets to make his charge, keeps me locked in there. So he knew what he was doing. Yep. He was a good player.
Excellent. Good to see the tactics used that way instead of just on rerolls.
Yeah. He knew what he was doing. Yeah. So that one was the one where they came by and closed it down. And so now they close it down, and basically I and myself included, a few of us were wondering, we were waiting for that last final score because we thought it was top 8. They clearly said on the website final 4, but we thought it was top 8 semifinals, and it was not. And so basically what happened is that Elliot, who you've had on recently, was one of the TOs there, told me, hang out, wait and see if one of the semifinalists don't come back, because you're right on the edge there. If they don't come back, you'll be in. And so I waited there, and sure enough, they all came back. So I did the right thing there. And so that was the end of my LVO journey.
So quick kind of, I guess, wash up from that. Would you change your list for next time? Did you think you made any particular command roster mistakes, I suppose? And next time you'll be like, I have to have 4 termagants with death spitters or something. They've got to be in the roster just in case. Or
Well, I would include a warrior with a barbed strangler, which is something I intended to do originally, but just didn't. And so,
over the venom cannon.
yeah, because they're better against hordes. Yeah, venom cannon is good against. You need the AP and the multiple damage and stuff, and the barbed strangler is for taking out multiple massed bodies. So I would have had that, but a lot of it. The thing about it is I debated on doing the 19 gaunts, one warrior, and I didn't. I figured if somebody else is bringing mids, that's what they're going to bring, and I need to be able to counter that, hit harder, and so I didn't do it, and I feel that I made the right choice for me, for my own play style, and it just, I made mistakes, and I think it's a big thing for a competitive player to not blame things like the dice. Like, for example, I lost those rerolls, things like that, but I could have played better positionally. I could have done steps, for example, somewhere in the list maybe to minimize some of the randomness of something. Just things like that. If you look at it in that way, I think you'll be a better competitive player. So that's kind of the way I see it, is that I did things the best that I could with my roster. It was the playing that cost me this one, because like I said, 1 point in the first round. Why? Because I hesitated and I didn't do what I should have done, what months and months of playing these guys told me to do. And so that was a thing. And then maybe playing faster, making better decisions in that last round. Maybe I would have had more points. We would have got to that 4th round and gotten to finish that up before the official ruling. I mean, there's a few things there. And I'd rather look at it in terms of what could I have done differently than an external situation, which I have no control over, hand of God kind of a thing.
No, I agree. A lot of people might look at a clutch moment in a game and say, oh, my dice failed me, so the dice lost me the game. And while that is true, you really have to look back and say, why was I in that situation where I was counting on a dice roll? Which is obviously a weird thing to get your head around in a game that is about dice. But
it comes down to even like your choice of faction. Maybe you could have picked something that wasn't as randomized. Something like that had more definite things. Like you look at a lot of tactics in regular 40K, and it's like, oh, do this. I mean, in Kill Team too. Oh, pay a command point, 2 command points, and then roll a dice to see if it even goes off. Whereas other factions had something clearly better and not as random. So, I mean, it can go back to the very genesis of selecting your team, and you can look at it from that. I mean, right, instead of blaming the dice.
Have quite a few tactics, or well, a few that are, 1 CP, and then on a 4+ it happens. It's like,
yeah, the frenzy, or not frenzied hammering, the what is it? The heavy rock weapon one, and then there's also the psychic denial one for the mortal wounds,
right,
and stuff. That's one too, where it's like, oh, you spend a command point, now you have to go to a dice roll. And so, yeah.
And they're not preferable dice rolls either. One's a 50, the other's like a 5 up or something. So.
Right. You're exactly right.
Be on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so good wash up, fair enough. But obviously, I assume, because you're here, you're still making a Kill Team channel. You enjoyed your time there.
Yeah, I did. I felt nothing but happiness at that. I was, like I said, I was proud to have taken in the top 8. I kept, because after that first loss, I looked at the standings and I was in 20th place. And I was like, that's not going to do. And I just kept thinking of my subscribers and stuff who were cheering me on and wishing me luck and all that. And I wanted to update them with good news. So it pushed me to go hard. And I did it, man. I came back and I said, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do different. I'm going to go harder. I'm bringing the extra lictor, and I pushed. And
it worked.
Yeah. I mean, 5th place is a lot better than 20th. So I was happy to not be that low at the end.
No, that was a great job. Great job. Okay, so that's
Thank you, sir.
Kind of your LVO experience wrapped up. let's move on to some more general things, if you're okay with that.